Welcome back, everybody, to the A Gap. I am Adam Fernandez, the host of the A Gap. Every now and then on the show, well, all the time on the show, you really hear me talk a lot about football, a little bit about baseball, but every now and then you hear me talk about professional wrestling. And in that sense, that's where our guest tonight comes from, the world of professional wrestling. He is the founder, the owner, lead promoter of River City Wrestling, based here in San Antonio. I speak, of course, of Bam Bam or Boom Boom. I'm sorry, Oliver. I don't know where I came up with Bam Bam. I don't know where that came out of.
It's all good.
Yeah, so how you doing tonight, Brandon?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite.
You're welcome. I appreciate you coming on here. Do you mind telling us first off where your love of professional wrestling first came from?
Sure. So I was an 80s latchkey kid, with a single parent and, from the 80s. And, in the 80s, I watched all the other stuff you were supposed to watch, right? Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Transformers and G.I. Joe. And then in the second grade, one of my classmates said, "Hey, you need to watch this thing." Or actually, they were talking it over, and they were like, "Yeah, this all-American guy was, beating up this Iranian guy," and and I was like, "Well, that sounds kind of interesting." And they're like, "Yeah, it's wrestling. Tune in at this time and blah blah." And so I watched it, and it was the most spectacular thing I've ever seen in my life. It was so larger than life. It completely beat everything that I was watching. I mean, just I love the characters and the feuds and the rivalries, and it was awesome. It beat everything, like I said, that I've ever seen. And I became obsessed. I wouldn't even say it's love. I would say it was an obsession, and complete with dragging my poor mom all over the country for shows. And
So, what out of all of that made you want to create RCW?
so I started RCW, admittedly a little earlier than I should have. Now that was always my game plan, even though I went to the Shawn Michaels Academy, which was the hardest thing I've ever done, and was basically just, getting beat up inside of this like air conditioned less, heatless, old like warehouse above a Mexican food restaurant. And by far it was the hardest thing I ever. I mean, I'm not saying I'm Mr. Athletic, but I mean, I played some sports, and was way harder. But my goal was always to be a promoter. I always believe that if you're going to do something, especially what I consider to be the top position of a company, you should know everything about it. You should know how everything works, how everything, is done, and you should pay your dues a little bit. And I feel that's actually one of the critical problems with independent wrestling today, is that a lot of promoters just buy their way in. They watch Raw, they watch SmackDown, and they got a little bit of money, and they spend it on wrestling. And so the first couple of years after Shawn Michaels Academy, so this was 2002, I graduated the Shawn Michaels Academy in 2000. And after Shawn had closed the TWA, I mean, I was working these shows where there was like, 6 people in the crowd. And I would say at least 3 of them I was responsible for, and it just didn't make sense to me to do all the work that's needed to do a show. That includes the setup and the tear down and the promoting of it and all that stuff, for 6 people. It didn't make any sense to me. And so I was young, and I was like, you know what, I know I could do better. And so I launched RCW 2002, admittedly earlier than I should have, but yeah, I mean, I was just like, I know I could at least draw a couple hundred. So that was kind of what prompted me to start RCW a little early, but my goal was always to be a promoter. Even when I was a kid, I would have notebooks, just like stacks of notebooks, of cards that I would basically act out or act out with the wrestling figures or a video game.
Been in business now for over 20 years now. How many big names that are big names in the sport today have stepped foot inside of a RCW ring?
I mean, so yeah, it's been pretty cool to see, I mean, of course, RCW brings down legends. We brought down tons of WWE Hall of Famers, and Jake the Snake Roberts, $1 Million Man, and Road Warrior Animal, Ricky Steamboat, and even like some of the newer names like from Impact or AEW. I mean, we got Cody Rhodes right when he was released from WWE.
I remember.
Yeah, and so we've had a lot of legends and big names come through, but we've also had talent that we've developed, or that have made their way up through us, that are now in WWE or AEW, like Keith Lee, Sammy Guevara, Oni Lorcan. There's more or escaping my top of my mind right now, but I mean those are the ones. Hernandez, Lance Hoyt, Lance Archer. So it's been pretty cool to see, and then we're seeing it right now with Luigi Primo, who's gone insanely viral, with millions and millions and millions of views on his video, interviews with Fox News and Sports Illustrated, and so it's really cool to see, the guys make it and achieve their dreams.
Speaking of Luigi, I know that a couple weeks ago, maybe it was even just last week, I saw that you took a little umbrage with a man who's considered a legend in the sport, a guy that I grew up watching, Jim Cornette, making some comments about Luigi Primo. And we know that he's really just not too fond of the state of professional wrestling today, as opposed to what it was back when he was major in it. What is your take on the state of wrestling?
So, man, that's a big question. I certainly respect Jim Cornette's opinion. He's a legend in the industry. And ultimately he's just trying to protect the business, and he's trying to protect wrestling. The reality of it is, though, that much like any other industry, wrestling has evolved. I mean, the foundations are always going to be the same, music has updated, movies have updated, but that doesn't change the basics of the notes of a song or a hero's journey in a movie, right? Like there's just some things that are always consistent in the foundation. And Luigi's such a great character. I mean, his look, his mannerisms, his face, his manner of speech. I mean, it's awesome. And so I can understand where Jim Cornette's coming from. He's coming from the era of Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen, and a very believable era. But at the same time, he also wore outrageous outfits, and had a tennis racket and was a mama's boy, right? If you want to know like the state of the business, I mean, come on, WWE is global. The biggest box office stars in Hollywood are former wrestlers. The Rock and Cena's catching up. John Cena's getting all these big gigs. I mean, WWE could go to Cowboy Stadium or AT&T Stadium and fill it up. So I mean, they're not. I mean, AEW is a deep. Yeah, AEW is a nice alternative. They got TBS and TNT.
So you've pretty much expanded the fan base of RCW. You got people from outside of San Antonio who stream or who drive down here to watch the shows that you guys put on. Do you have any desire whatsoever to expand RCW out to maybe even just in, like some of the other areas in Texas?
None whatsoever. We're San Antonio. We're San Antonio through and through.
For the viewers of the show and my classmates too, because this is also going as a assignment, where can they find RCW or Brandon Oliver, or streaming and all that, social media?
So the main things to find RCW is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're at RCW Forever, all one word. And then we also have our website, rivercitywrestling.net. And from there, you can follow the links to the RCW network.
All right, Brandon,
All
it's
right.
great. It's been great. I love having you on. I hope you can come on again sometime soon.
Absolutely.
All right. You have a good night.
All right. Thank you.